So we're here again for another episode of Game of Thrones. And this one starts off really strong with this beautiful speech from Jon Snow, along with some pretty intimate moments with our favourite characters who died in the Battle of Winterfell. Now right away at the beginning, I feel like they're setting the tone for Jon being an excellent leader. Dany takes a back seat right from the start of the episode and doesn't actually address the people and lets Jon do that instead. And his speech is inspiring.
For as long as men draw breath, they were the shields that guarded the realms of men, and we shall never see their light again.
The speech also foreshadows a lot of the things that will start to break down over this episode and into the next episode. He mentions how they set aside their differences and unified it for a common cause. They fought, lived, and died together for the future of everyone, which in the moment shows the virtue and power of what they did, but also makes a really good contrast to what happens over this episode as Sansa, Dany, Jon, Tyrion, Varys all start dividing and breaking apart. So when we look back to the speech now, it almost has a little sting of tragedy in it, as they didn't manage to keep that momentum of unification going forward, as they all kind of broke apart into their own little tribes again afterwards. Next we get one of my favourite extended scenes of the episode, where we have this huge wholesome feast, everyone's getting together and celebrating their win, as well as remembering the dead. I quite enjoyed this first exchange we had between Gendry and the Hound, where Gendry's kind of looking for Arya, and he's like, I wonder why you're looking for Arya, eh? And then when Gendry starts stammering and feeling guilty for that, the Hound spins it again and says, you can do that because you're alive. Having the chance to celebrate, laugh, and drink is the whole reason they fought for life in the first place. Cleverly, the first time we start to see the divisions between the characters and how politics starts to kind of build back up into the series is when Gendry is given Storm's End, and then we get those really well-crafted shots of Dany starting to feel a bit isolated from her advisors and friends. She sees how Jon is attracting this position of leadership and how quickly men start to rally to him. She sees that Tyrion has his own loyalties and friends with his brother and can't be fully trusted to back her. Not to mention the straight-up open hostility of Sansa. So we get this sense of conflict and politics creeping back in, mixed with a bunch of really honest and genuine wholesome interactions with Tormund and Podrick and Brienne, where the more naive and oblivious characters just kind of enjoy the moment. I think it also separates that this isn't Dany's victory, this isn't Dany's war. She's more tied up in the Iron Throne and her destiny and legacy, where a lot of these characters feel like they've finished their entire fight, their journey. This was the finale for them. This other war with Dany is seen as like a pointless drag-on of their suffering, but they kind of have to do it because they needed her in the first place. So after the feast, we get this interesting conversation between Dany and Jon, where they really hash out a lot of the conflicts and worries they've had around this truth that's kind of separating them and their relationship. We get several scenes like this throughout the episode, where we have these unflinching combative conversations between two people who totally disagree. We see Dany and Jon look each other in the face, they both care for each other and want to be on the same team, but they just simply can't find any common ground to agree on. We see that more Ned-like honor in Jon, where he has to tell his family he can't hide secrets from them, versus Dany's practical look of how this knowledge will corrupt everything she's trying to build. And they also use this scene to show how hard and cold she's beginning to get. She was very stern with Jon in this scene. Now this scene is not the only time we see Dany framed as more hostile and dangerous. In the scene where they're discussing their plans, before Missandei and her dragon die, she is already referring to ripping Cersei out, root and stem. And straight away we begin to see characters like Tyrion and Varys concerned about her approach. And they build on this even more with the conversation between Tyrion and Sansa. It doesn't take Sansa very long to figure out that Tyrion is very concerned about her provoking Dany and that she might react in a really bad way. If even the core advisors of a monarch are afraid of them, it's not a good sign. On top of that, we get two really stellar scenes between Varys and Tyrion, who have always worked so well as a conversational duo. We can see on this first round on the boat that Tyrion isn't quite accepting all the facts yet, and when Varys throws out proposals and conclusions, we see Tyrion dodging the questions more, giving witty replies rather than seriously addressing them.
I worry about her state of mind.
We are advisors to the Queen. Worrying about her state of mind is our job.
He does throw out one compromise where he's like, maybe they can rule together, and we quickly get to see Varys pull that apart. It's not until after the ambush and after this really important scene where Varys confronts Dany that we get to see Tyrion actually properly address a lot of the issues that Varys is bringing up.
These are the people you came here to protect. I beg you, Your Grace, do not destroy the city you came to save. Do not become what you have always struggled to defeat.
This scene is also really great because it's another one of those examples of two characters face to face just not able to agree. Similar to John and Dany, how they were both saying really rational arguments, addressing each other fully and honestly, but they couldn't come to a consensus or find common ground. The same is reflected here with Tyrion and Varys yet again. Tyrion believes that Dany could be a good monarch. He wants to follow her, wants to support her, wants to choose a side and keep going. But Varys is not Team Dany, he's Team People. And he won't let assigned loyalties get in the way of him making rational decisions that are the best for the most amount of people. And at the end of this conversation, we have the single best moment of tension in this whole episode. We have Tyrion look Varys in the eye and say, "Please don't." And we can see how much Varys wants to side with Tyrion, how much he respects him as a person, and he wants to be on the same side, but they just aren't.
I've spoken as honestly as I can. Each of us has a choice to make. I pray we choose wisely.
And just how Dany loves Jon, but they both can't agree. Just like the Starks that love each other but can't agree, Varys respects and values Tyrion, but they cannot agree. And so he withdraws. This episode as a whole was an episode around confrontation and choices. Everyone making their best cases for their positions, their wants, needs, and desires. Whether it's Arya and Sansa wanting Jon to be on their team, Bronn confronting the Lannisters about the debts owed to him, Tyrion trying to make that bridge to Sansa he could never quite connect, and Brienne trying to convince Jaime to stay. And it all boils down to these choices that every character has to make. It started with the choice for Jon to tell his family about his heritage, the choice for Sansa to back Dany, the choice for Cersei to kill Missandei, the choice for Tyrion and Varys to back or betray Dany, the choice for Jon to go south, the choice for Arya to marry Gendry, and the choice for Jaime between Cersei and Brienne. We've already begun to see how these choices have impacted the story and snowballed out of control, but soon we will see more and more of these decisions coming to a head. And the next episode will see Varys possibly betray Dany, and will Tyrion defend her, expose what he's doing, and take down his longtime friend, or will he too betray Dany? We find all of our characters at another crossroad in the series. And that's the type of Game of Thrones I can really get behind. It's always been about characters making decisions that lead to other decisions that get out of their control and make the story interesting. Whether it was Jaime making the choice to push Bran out of the tower, or Ned trusting Littlefinger, or Catelyn arresting Tyrion, so many different choices spiraling out of control and making the story so amazing. And I just hope that Game of Thrones can capture that really awesome part of its story yet again at the end here. Oh yeah, and that little bastard Jon should have hugged Ghost.